Well, hi there and welcome everyone. How's everyone doing on this lovely Sunday? So, I went with the more general sort of game dev stream template for this stream rather than like an audio one, because I'm not exactly sure what we will be doing, but I think it will still be audio related. Hey Tutu, what's going on? So, if you were in the previous stream, we worked on this BU meter here. You can see that it looks a little different here. Let's see, do I have any audio here? I do. Let me know if these levels are okay for you. So I'll tweak the system a little bit. You can see we have these peak audio meters here displaying basically how high we got. So we can like ramp up the RPM here, and you can sort of see like how high on the audio meter we actually got with the sound. I do, however, feel like what I get out of So Loud is it's a little unpredictable. Especially if I have like a sound like these UI sounds here that are actually very short. If I just play this one, you can see the thing sort of jumping around. Sometimes even reaching like the yellow sections there. Most of the time, actually, they're kind of okay. We go into the button clicks Reaper file here. Oh. Reaper update available. Yeah, let's maybe not do that right now. Anyway, we have the same click here somewhere. If I can find it. Which one was it? Focus moved. Short one. It's supposed to be that one, right? Yeah. This is just gonna loop very quickly like this. I mean, it's so short that even Reaper can't really play it back without some audio nastiness going on there. But you can see like this meter is behaving much more sanely here, and I don't really get that out of So Loud. It might be something that So Loud is doing. It might be something that I am doing kind of wrong. So it's not super reliable with short sounds yet. And this one, like, you occasionally don't get really anything, and then occasionally get actually kind of high levels there. That's annoying. But I think there's probably 3 or 4 threads actually involved in getting this thing sort of showing here. Actually, there's probably only 3, I think. There's the So Loud background thread. Then there's the background thread in this editor here, which actually pumps the audio engine. And then there's the main thread that like shows that information. So maybe some sort of like slight sync funkiness going on. I'm not sure. But if we have a slightly longer piece of audio, it behaves much more predictably. So I'm probably just gonna ignore that for now and just know that it's a thing. Some internal buffer thing the threads try to rent or access. Yeah, I don't think this... It's not like a race condition or anything like that, but the thing is that here in this code, where we actually get that data out, so it's this preview player backend thing here. So this has an update function. Here we're actually updating the sound manager. This is the same thing that the game's main thread calls. And then after that we send the report channel volumes. This is stuff that we did in the previous stream. And this guy then gets it out of the actual event manager, sound manager. What's the thing? Right, it's right here. So approximate volume. This gets it out of so loud. Which I can't access here. Actually, the approximate volume gets it out of so loud, and this thing just gets it out of an array, really. So sort of depends on the sync between the threads. You can see that this is not so loud code. This is not my code. You can see that there's like a mutex lock and unlock around this thing. So there's another thread that's actually filling in this visualization channel volume array. And so depending on how those threads actually run, because they're not like running in sync necessarily, we might get slightly different samples in that array. At least that's how I'm thinking it. But we'll see. Anyway, we get some stuff out, we can show some stuff. I'm thinking that's probably enough for now. And I can clearly see if it's reaching 0 decibels, then we're at the level where we actually start clipping, so that's not nice. Anyway, today I'm thinking we'll probably want to put some sounds into the game. I'm gonna do one thing before that though, but I think we'll probably want to put some sounds into the game. Here's my sound to-do list for the demo. So we have this temp version done. These are basically like all of the sounds that we have had in the game for a while. They're not necessarily all that nice, and they're not necessarily all that well mixed together, but they're kind of there, so you can hear them in the game if you just run the game. And then we have these other ones that are sort of not really done at all. And I'm thinking we might want to start with this background ambient noise. I'm gonna try to do something slightly more simple this time around. Before we do that though, I wanna add one more thing to these events here in Timbre. We have these event properties. Funnily enough, I don't have like a volume per, like a master volume sort of thing for the event. So like in Fmod here, right? You have all kinds of ways to actually adjust the volume here. You can, for example, set it here with this fader. You can add more points in the mix where you actually adjust the volume for for on sort of like an event per event basis. And I don't really have that. I can of course add like a parameter here, like a float parameter, param1, and we can plug this in here and hook it up to this guy. Now we can like play with this thing. All of that works, but I'd like to have a sort of like a master, almost like a volume multiplier that everything gets multiplied by. And later down the line, I'll probably want to have sort of a setting for it here that you can just it just appears up here or maybe here in the corner or something. Regardless if you actually add it as a parameter or not. For the time being, I'm just going to want to have it here as a field here in the general properties, just so you can like raise or lower the volume of a certain event in one go. So let's start by adding that, and then we can move on to the ambient stuff. Actually, put stuff into the game. And yeah, to answer your question, I haven't added any new sounds yet. Yeah, the vehicle sounds are actually kind of tricky to do, as I'm sure you can imagine, because they're sort of continuous dynamic sounds that react to how the vehicle moves and all of that. So they're not super simple to implement. I'm gonna make sure I get some really kick-ass sounds for the vehicles, but I've been sort of reimagining my whole audio workflow here with the Reaper integration and everything. And so I'm gonna start from the most complicated things for sure. Okay, so what do we need to do to put this volume thing here? Let's maybe start from the editor side. The runtime side should be reasonably simple. So if we go into Timbre, here we have an event class, which looks like this. There's also a runtime representation of this, which is called event data. This is just a class that has data fields in it. This is what actually gets written into the runtime data right here. Serialize this stuff. What was the field we actually had there already? Just select something. So it's length, right? The length is the thing that gets shown here. We'll want to have just the volume. We want to have just the volume there right next to it. You might be wondering, why is the length set to -1? Well, length is actually sort of a complicated concept in Timbre. It's not super obvious what the length of something might be, because it might be different every time. But basically, you can just, if you sort of happen to know what the length is, you can just set it here, and then you can use that as runtime. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just have this determine event length for the selected event, and it just runs it through and it records. Okay, it was 0.25. This time it was 0.27. Sort of depending on which sound it selects, it can differ quite a lot. So that's why, like by default, it's just -1, and then if you have, for example, this Madrigal logo, which is like this asset's length is like 17.8 seconds. That doesn't mean that this event is 17.8 seconds necessarily, because it takes a few milliseconds to update the whole, or it doesn't necessarily take milliseconds. I'm sure. So I'll hope it doesn't do that, but now it's essentially just running it without playing any audio. You can see the time up here, and it's running through this and determines like how long it took And you can do this thing for the whole project if you want to. That's why there's like a skip current button there, right? So it took 17.83. So a little more than this event. Most of the time you don't really need the length of the event for anything, but if you have like a voiceover, for example, it might be really handy to have it. So we have a length here. We'll just quite simply want to have a volume as well. So let's put that in. Let's just start simply and put that in. So public float. Well, what do we want to call that? Do we want to call it volume or volume multiplier or what? Yeah, I'm gonna shut down Fmod. No, thank you. So this will get this is essentially a multiplier, right? So we could call it volume multiplier if we wanted to. Volume multiplier. What am I doing? Like this, because basically what we'll do then at runtime is just we'll take whatever we have currently and just multiply it by that before passing it on to any play audio nodes. Right. How that's supposed to be. Volume multiplier, stream, get out. Volume multiplier with a small v. And I don't think I actually do deserialize that, but I'd like to keep it working. And here we can see that when we're building this thing, we're doing all kinds of things, like we're flattening the node graph, for example. You might have nodes that are made up of other nodes, things like that. That's not a thing that actually exists at runtime. It wants just a flattened node graph. So we have this node graph flattener here, which just takes whatever node graph we give it and make sure to actually sort of expand, essentially conceptually replace whatever is in those nodes with their actual nodes and put them into the main node graph. And here we want to have the volume as well. Volume multiplier. Just initialize that to 1. Yeah, you can see here that the comment is basically what I said earlier. Negative length means that the length of the event has not or cannot be determined. Like, for example, the main menu music event. It never ends, so it doesn't technically have a length. Like so. Event data, yes, that is all that we need for that. And now we should probably bump the version number of this from 5 to 6. So 5 times since the introduction of timbre have I changed the binary layout of this stuff. That just means that if you try to run the game with data that has changed, you get a clear error rather than like doing some weird overread somewhere or underread. Right. So we have just lists of all of the things in there. That's fine. And now the only thing we need to do still is expose that value to the UI. So let's go ahead and do that. Event properties form. Yeah. call this volume maybe. What is actually happening? We set property command, the name, okay. Yeah, it should probably be the same, so we can just use the reflection to actually set it there in the get set the event object. Volume, volume multiplier. So let's get all of this. And here we can just give it a nicer name. Volume. Or something like event volume. I don't know. Let's just call it volume for now. I think that's all we need to do. So with this in place, we should be able to set it. We should also be able to like undo it, for example. So if we have a button clicked here, a volume, we can set it to 1.4, enter. Now if I do undo, it goes back to 1, and if I redo, it goes back to 1.4. That's nice. Excellent. And if we have a look at the stuff in the, drag that off to the side. Is it really not getting saved? Oh right, we need to save it. Yeah, I actually, yeah. I had a thing here where I decided that I want to actually do the serialization and deserialization by hand. Not sure that's necessarily the best thing ever, but it does give me the option to do the updates however I want later if I want to. So volume multiplier. In a few places I do this serialization completely like automated by this JSON.NET library, and in other places I do it completely by hand like this. So now let's see. Let's go to button clicked, set the volume to 1.1, save this thing. And now if we look at the diff here, we can see, first of all, every event has gotten the volume multiplier. One of them should be, yes, 1.1. And this should be the thing that we wanted button clicked. Yeah. So this is how the Timbre project file data looks like, by the way. It's really quite simple. This is the whole node graph. Just 3 nodes and 2 connections, and that's it. Very simple. Okay, cool. Let's undo that and save that. Version is in there too. There is a version for the, yeah, there's a version for the file version is 1 here. So this is not the same version as the exported version, right? The exported version is the thing that we, when we now, if we like, I should be able to run the game now. I'm just going to demonstrate this thing. Right, so I can run this game. You can hear that we have audio here and all of that. That's all fine. Now if I build this, I press F7 and I build this project. Except it, oh, it was It's doing something. I don't know what. So now this file, this timbre means.timbre file is the one that actually gets the stuff. So now we get like incorrect timbre data format. It expects version 6 and expected. Sorry, the loader data is version 6, but the game still expects version 5, right? The game has no idea about the volume multiplier thing yet. This version here in this JSON data, that is that's a version number that as you can see, I still haven't bumped. It has been 1 forever. It's one reason why I have the serialization done by hand for these guys. That's just so that, because these are sort of like source data files, if I make a change that make these files incompatible with the project, it can be kind of a pain in the ass to actually go in and fix it up. That was the version for the compiled asset, yeah. So the other one is the compiled asset, which is binary data. It's not actually JSON. And since the binary data file can always be regenerated just by, you know, going here and going build project. If you're trying to load an incompatible binary data file, it just plain out refuses to do that. It doesn't try to fix that up or anything like that. But the JSON data should be sort of softly updated, if you will. If I make a change that is drastic enough to actually warrant a completely new version, then I will bump that other version, the version in JSON, and then it will probably have to go through some sort of upgrade path before the thing loads it. But just adding a field like we just did, that doesn't require it in any sense. And for example, if we look at these nodes here, right? We have like the play audio node, for example. It has like a field called advanced settings visible. So that thing just gets added there into the JSON data. If we look at the play audio node in the editor, so it has a field here called editor node data. This just means that it gets automatically deserialized and serialized. And like if you add something to the class which is not found in the JSON data, then it will just use the default value, which here is set to false. And if it finds something in the JSON data which isn't a property on a node with this editor node data, then it will just skip it. So source part will gradually update itself since you're using all the tools while developing stuff. Yeah, I guess that's one way of looking at it. And then if you make some changes to the actual runtime data, like we now did, then you go in and you bump the version number here in timbre runtime here. This is an event data iSerializable. So basically, like the means.timbre file, which is the file that we build from the editor and which is then read by the game. This guy is essentially sort of like the timbre file is a serialized version of one of these event datas. So we went in here and we added a volume multiplier and we bumped the version number. Actually, the version number is here in the project data. And we can find like mirrors of these exact files here in C++. So we have timbre project data, and here we just bump that to version 6. Of course, we can't just do that because that will actually crash the game. So now we need to go into the event data, which is also serializable, as you can see, and we'll just add the float here as well. Volume multiplier, like so. Then we just do stream put up and stream get. That's it. Now the game should run again, this new version of the data. Let's see. course it's not doing anything with the... Whoa, that's really loud. At least it feels really loud. Master Ball. The volume for this engine sound is just like ridiculously loud. I have an engine bus nowadays. We can use to lower it even further. Like 0.1 maybe. We can still hear that the other sounds are audible. But yeah, audio is all about mixing. Which is something that I've learned recently. Audio is all about mixing and what to actually not play. Right? So I'm thinking actually a pretty good first use of this volume multiplier is just to lower it for the engine sound, because it just feels very, very, very loud, even though you can't really see it there on the VU meter. Right, so now we have this thing sort of flowing all the way, but we're not actually using it anywhere yet. So that's not nice. We should make that happen. Before we do that though, let's go see quickly what I set those things to. Yeah, so they're just 1, they're just displayed as 1. Might be nicer if we displayed them as like 1.0. Oh, that's fine. That guy can go away. Yeah, so here's a comp node. Here's what I was talking about. This comp node is actually made up of other nodes. So radio effects, it's this thing that we've developed in a previous video. Was it maybe a stream? I think it was probably a video. So this has like input pins which you can modify, output pins that you can modify, and then you can just drag one of these guys onto another event and use it like that. So now everything is 1. That's nice. Let's build that. Actually, building the sound bank is kind of slow already. You can see that we're pushing 16.8 megabytes. Maybe we should make that a little more verbose. Let's go into, there's something called Builder in Timbre. And the builder is the thing that is actually responsible for packaging all of this up. So we're building the project, and we're building it and putting it into, let's see. Where does the data actually go? I don't remember anymore. Project data is right there. Right, okay, yeah, it just stuffs it in a result struct here, or class. So what you get out of it is a project data. So this is the thing that we actually looked at. That's the thing that we bumped the version number. You get one of these guys out, filled with all of the data, and it's serializable. So you can then just stuff it in a stream and write it to a file. And then you get a bunch of sound bank datas. And these guys this is where the actual audio data lives, if you have like WAV files as part of your project. Got a bunch of these guys out. Currently we only do 1. I haven't actually implemented multiple sound banks yet. But the idea is that if you have like 2 levels and both of them have a lot of level specific sounds, then you don't need to load both of the level sounds. You can just load one of them. And the runtime is actually fully implemented, but the editor side is not yet. So so you get 1 project data and array of sound banks out, right? And then you can just write those to wherever you want. And so we go through this, we go through all of the buses, we go through all of the events, and then after that we have the project data done, and then we need to create the sound banks. And we create the sound banks just normally, and it kind of figures out, you know, get assets to include in sound bank, given a sound bank and the builder. And it does that by figuring out, okay, which sounds are actually used in which events, right? And then it creates one of those. But then it might actually convert them using this convert wave file function here. And right, it's building sound bank, blah blah blah. Then it's calling build, and this build thing might actually take quite a while to occur. Now the annoying part here is that you don't actually see that output, it would seem. Or do you? Maybe you do. What I would like to make happen here is if you press F7 like this, you get a bunch of build progress messages, but then it sort of stops. Building soundbank main, and it's probably because it's converting all of those files. It would be nicer if you just got a bit more information out of that. Oh well, let's maybe not do that. Let's just do what we originally set out to do. We have the data there now. We can go into the game, and we can actually make use of that data. So where we actually want to use the volume now is in those nodes. So we have a bunch of timbre specific nodes here. We have some filter nodes, an end node, event time, float parameter, int parameter, noise. Noise is probably one of them. Let's close all but this. Oh, and it closes all but that. Only one side. So this is the code for the noise node. We did this in the previous stream as well. It's basically like play some noise. No, it doesn't play any noise, it just returns a noise. Right, exactly. Yeah, it has an output pin, which is a data source. And then you need to plug this into a play audio node to play it. So that's fine, we don't need to do anything there because we're not playing anything there. On signal, no. On start, no. Pitch shifter, play audio, this is the important one. It's also probably the most complex one. It's like over 400 lines. Reverb, audio source, wave asset, wave shaper. So this is the only one currently where we actually need to concern ourselves with like volume. Oh, volume. I can't write. So it has a helper function called volume, or get volume, which should return the volume, and then it just uses that. I bet it uses it somewhere else as well. Update playing sound gets the volume once again. Nice. So I've actually made it very, very simple to plug the event volume now into this. How nice of me. So to be able to access the actual event, we have this thing called timbre printer user data, which has a parameter to the event instance and the event description. And I think the event description is where we can, yeah, here we can get the event data out, get data. Let's go back here. Yeah, we actually even have the event. We have a pointer to the event data here in this play audio node state. Okay, so that's even simpler then. is almost all done for us already. So just go into get volume here. We get the volume from the input pin. So that would be basically, let's have a look. That's like this pin here. If this pin is connected to something, then we'll get the data out of it. So that's what this does. We initialize it to 1 in case it's not connected to anything, and then we get the input pin value and put it there. This one actually returns a boolean, so whether or not it actually was connected to anything. But regardless, after that, we have the volume there, and we just want to multiply it by this, and then we have the volume multiplier, like so. So it's like literally a one-line change at runtime if you don't count the actual data additions that we did. So now we should be able to... I'm gonna have to probably stop the background music here. So my feeling here is that this engine sound is a little too loud. If I press the accelerator here, it's kind of like obnoxiously loud currently. So if we just put this down to like 0.4 maybe, and then rebuild this thing. Yeah, and like I said, we're building one sound bank which contains everything currently. It's 16 megabytes large, so it's actually kind of large. Would be nice to see which files are actually taking up the most of that space. Alright, so it's less, but still actually kind of loud. Let's make it even more. And we can, of course, we can check it here. We don't need to go into the game. But for that to actually make a difference, we have to rebuild. Well, I have to make sure that's up to date, but then we have to rebuild the editor. And the editor actually uses the exact same runtime node code as the game. So let's have a look. Engine. Kind of loud. Let's make that smaller. Kind of feel like it doesn't make a difference. If we make that 0. Okay, so why doesn't that work now? Am I running? I'm running the release version of that. And I have the release version of that as well. That's interesting. Yeah, it sounds the same, exactly. Sounds very much the same. I'm wondering why that is. Yes, I am using it because I'm reading it here, right? I'm getting the volume and then I'm multiplying it by the volume multiplier and then I'm returning it. So that should all be good. We can just print the volume multiplier here. Mult. That might be the easiest way. Yeah, so multiplier is 0.4. That's the stuff that we actually explicitly built. That's fine. So then the question is, of course, is this actually used? Ah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's clearly used, but it's only used on like some of the sounds. That's interesting. So basically, yeah, you have to remember that the volume is not it's not a linear scale. So the perceived loudness is not like, you're not gonna get like a perceived half loudness out of a 0.5, for example. That's one important thing to keep in mind. We're not talking about decibels now. We're just literally talking about scaling the sound waves up and down. But still, the perceived loudness is not like half the volume for half perceived loudness. But to me, it sounds like we are actually only setting some of those volume. Yeah, yeah, I know what you meant. The thing is though that we're running a 0.1 now on this. If we make this like really tinily small, 0.01, it sounds like some of the engine sounds are actually getting scaled, some of them aren't. It's not super easy to hear, but it's clearly still like there. It sort of jumps between different levels, as you can hear. All right, so one thing that could be an issue here is that we set the volume to 0 in some cases. You can see here the volume is this red line, this thicker one. The playback speed is this blue line. If we set the volume to be set the volume to be 0, completely 0, as you can see here, or for this second one it starts at 0 and then goes back to 0 when we sort of get past that level. So loud has a thing which I should probably look at. Yeah, the volume now jumps, exactly. That is what I mean. So loud has a thing called, what is it called? Concepts, maybe. Virtual voices, clipping. It's called something like silent voice behavior or something like that. Voice management. Inaudible behavior, right, okay. So let's suppose virtual voices mean you can play on many more voices that will actually be audible. So we're going to sort the voices by the set volume and play the ones that are potentially most audible. The default behavior for the inaudible voices to pause and resume when audible again. It's fine for ambient loops, for example, but not suitable for some sounds. Sounds will become active at once, which is probably not the desired outcome. Yeah. So what I'm thinking here is basically we have this update function here. Update playing sound. I'm not sure this valid voice handle, what this returns if we actually have the sound at like 0 volume. Does this actually return false? Which would mean that it goes here. It is possible. Basically, we want it to always go here as long as the sound is playing. Let's have a look. Valid voice handle. There's probably some interesting concepts. Is it basics maybe? Oh, gee. Why can't I get any? I'm pretty sure that we actually get like... There's actually some documentation on that. But let's search for that inaudible voice. What's it called? You can probably find it here. Inaudible behavior. This one. So do we set that on like the on the wave maybe? Yeah, it's an audio source. Must tick. Inaudible behavior. Must tick. So by default, this is going to be something sensible. Init. Sound loop. Inaudible tick. So what I'm thinking here is that because when you actually like push the accelerator and you hear the RPM go up, you get this weird stair step effect now with the volumes. And I'm thinking that like those audio, those sound sources that were inaudible, because we just, the highest RPM sound will not be audible when we are like idling the engine. So the highest audio clip will be inaudible, and the default is to actually pause the inaudible ones. So I'm thinking that the set volume probably won't do anything if it is like not ticking. Can you set that on a specific audio context? Yes. I can. I clearly can. I can also apparently set it on the global thing, because this is the global solar.h. So you can set the behavior for inaudible sounds, but you can also set it on the audio source itself. Righty-o. So yes, I can disable it. I'm just thinking where I should actually do that. Maybe it would be easiest just to go to Timbre Sound Manager and just set it right after the init. Set inaudible behavior. Okay, it's actually, yeah, it's not, because it takes a voice handle. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it takes a voice handle, so it's actually not a global setting. Well, we can set it here. Start new sound in the play node state. We can set it here, so we do so loud. Set inaudible behavior, sound. Oh, 1 second. I have to take a phone call. Right. Sorry about that. So voice handle. Voice handle. Why is Visual Studio like auto correcting my dots to this sort of like address of pointer? I'm pressing like period here. I'm like period. It's like no, you want the arrow there. It's like no, I don't. Voice handle. Thank you. Oh, because it's so loud and not sound. They're so similar. There we go. Voice handle. Right. So let's set this to must tick true and kill false. Let's see if that makes a difference. C-line does that automatically, yeah. Yeah, many IDEs do that automatically, but Visual Studio tends to do that when you don't want it to. Anyway, let's have a listen. Right, so that's clearly not what we want. And it kind of makes a little bit of sense that you would get that sort of effect, because we're setting the volume here on these guys, right? We're setting it on the lower spectrum of the RPM to be a bit higher, 1.2, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, 0.7. What is confusing here, though, is that if we just return like a fixed value, and it starts doing this weird stair-stepping thing. Let's turn that to 1.0. Whoa, yeah. Right. I think I know why that is, actually. That has to do with the fact that we are, of course... I mean, that makes perfect sense, if you think about it for more than a second. We're playing these sounds at various RPMs, and we need to smoothly fade in the sound at the start. When you go from idle to RPM 1, you want to smoothly fade it in, and again, this orange line is the volume here. So That makes perfect sense that we get the stair stepping effect. I don't know why I figured it wouldn't do that. So we need to do this. We need to get it out of the input pin, otherwise it's just going to be wrong. Absolutely wrong. And of course we have that inaudible behavior thing there. And now it works as intended. So the interesting thing here is that, like, why can't we get it to sound lower? Is it just the fact that the scale is not linear? We just need to lower it by so much to actually get the perceived effect of the volume change. Yeah, like now we can clearly hear it go down. So let's undo all of this, all except the initial change. Get the inaudible behavior back as well. Just undo. Everything to that, and then we redo only that change. Okay, so now that we actually use our brains a little bit, I'm gonna shut that down, make sure we have that version of timbre in use here in the timbre editor. Get a little bit of coffee. And now if we play around with this, and it should work just the same right here in the editor. It is set to 1. We get it very, very loud. Let's make it 0.5. Yeah. It does work perfectly fine. It's just the fact that, like, we need to lower it actually quite a lot. There's clearly a change there. Compared to that. So it does actually work. The annoying thing here is that, again, like, we are hearing things, right? But the values that we get out of so loud are so small here that you don't actually see anything on the VU meter. And that's a little disturbing. But I probably need to look at that. At some point. I think 0.3 is probably fine. So it was working all along. It just, I didn't build that. It was working all along. I just wasn't being aggressive enough with my values. Maybe at the display text was probably just saying it's a value on the log scale, basically. I probably want to, in the end, actually have a like a decibel slider for that, which would convert it then to a raw value. Do we have this open here still? Yes, we do. Right, so you know, if we have, what's the formula for going the other way around? It's this, basically. So a value of 1 should give us 0. It doesn't though. Oh, it's probably... wait a minute. Let me just have a quick look here at the formulas.
All right.
Oh, I have the wrong one again. So it's this one. So a value of 1 on just like the raw volume scale, that gives us 0 decibel, right? A value of 0.3, as we now put that would be minus 10 decibels. A value of 0.5 gives us minus 6. And so basically, if you have, you know, we can't actually do 0 because it's approaching like infinity, but we can do like 0.00001. You get 200. 0.00000, like just make it smaller. The value gets really large or negatively large, right? So just having a value in decibels instead of just raw volume, that will make it a lot sort of more sensible, right? You know, even 0.9, that is like 1 decibel less than 1 basically, or almost 1.1. Yeah, anyway, really good YouTube video, by the way, if you're interested in these sorts of things. This thing here, lessons learned from a decade of audio programming. I'll just post that in the chat. So here we have the conversions to and from decibels to volume and back. So that's really handy. Anyway, let's go with point maybe 25, like so, and now we're gonna build this. And now it should be a lot nicer to listen to this stuff in the game. Feels very loud again. Is it this loud? It is actually kind of loud. Probably need to make it lower still. What? This can't be right. This can't be right. What's going on now then? Oh, I'm setting the wrong value. Right, my brain is not working today, as you can clearly see. There we go. Yeah, I clearly need to make that knob here so that I can, with my brain of a kindergartner, I can actually do this thing. Okay. Now it should be much nicer to listen to. So like one of my issues with timbre so far has been that it's been super tricky to actually do like any sensible mixing. And that is one of the things that I actually want to just improve a lot on with this. Yeah, it's maybe a little almost too low now, but I think that's probably better to err on that side than to just go crazy loud with the engine sound. And I'm gonna have sliders for like sound effects and engine sounds and all of that separately. That's why you can do things like engine sound effects vol and then just lower it even more. And that would affect only the engine sounds. Not to mention, of course, that this particular engine sound is kind of annoying in many ways. Need to make it better. Right. But okay. Now that we have this thing working, what I'm gonna do is go make another cup of coffee. I'm gonna come back, and we are going to actually put that ambient sound into the game. put on my beautiful break graphic here. I'll be back in probably like 5 minutes or so. Alrighty then. Back with a fresh cup of coffee. Let's hope it boosts my brain activity by a few orders of magnitude. So, I'm gonna get rid of the music again. Because hopefully now we can start to do some actual cool audio work. So if I actually don't boot straight into a level, let's add an underscore there before the play level file. Right, this is what happens when we actually just boot the game normally. We get this piece of music, which is composed by my good friend Lasse. Or actually he made a bunch of sort of layers that I've then sort of stitched together. But if you load the game, this is what you hear. You hear silence. Until you actually get close enough to the car to hear its engine sound. This is complete silence. And complete silence, as I'm sure many of you know, like now you can start to hear the engine sound. Complete silence in audio design is like a big no-no. It's not something you should do. So we should make it so that there's always a little bit of ambient noise going on. And if you sort of consider this place, it's a pretty wide open place. It has this big field, big plain here. We can't drive very far out onto it, but we need to somehow make the audio world reflect this area. Because now it sounds very sort of sterile. Also, the engine sound that we can now hear, which is basically like the only sound we can hear, it's completely without any sort of reverb or anything. And there should probably be a little bit of reverb added to one of the buses. So the buses in Timbre, you can sort of set them up like this. You can't do very much with buses yet. It's just something that I haven't implemented all that far. But you can set up buses here, and you can then assign different events to different buses. We can see that the engine is assigned to the engine SFX, the music have the music bus, and then this UI stuff here just has to have the SFX bus. Maybe we'll actually want to have a UI bus as well. Currently, you can only set volume on a per bus, so there's sort of like mixing buses. But you can also set filters on a bus. So that's just something that I've sort of hacked together previously in code just to test out that it actually does work. And it does, so that's nice. But I don't really have a way to do it through code currently in the form of any sort of sensible, stable API or anything like that. Like a harsh wind could play there, can't imagine birds chirping. Yeah, I mean, there could be some birds. There could be some birds, but it's definitely not supposed to be. It's not supposed to convey the sense of like a very peaceful place. It's more like a vast, desolate sort of thing. And this is, of course, this is not Earth. It's not supposed to be Earth. supposed to be a sort of quite ragged place. I may have to actually just bump up the wind animation on a bunch of these things to give it that sort of feeling as well. You can't typically see it all that well, but if you move close to these trees here, you can see that they are actually animated. And we can animate the grass as well. I just don't have it turned on currently. And they sort of obey the same wind direction and all of that. So that stuff does actually work. But let's go into timbre here. We have some new stuff here as well on the assets side of things compared to what we had previously. There's this thing called show all folders. So currently, like if we have a Reaper project, we have like the backups folder and the source media folder. I made it so that you can actually go into the project settings, so you can just ignore, you can set those folders to hide right here. And then if you have this show all folders toggle on, you can actually see them. And now we could, for example, just use that directly. That idle wave file there. But that's kind of nice. So this is now all the Reaper projects that we have, and the Reaper project can contain multiple wave files, which you can have a look at the Reaper integration video if you want to know more about how that stuff works. And then we have some just straight up wave files here. So the idea is not to actually completely abandon wave files. For example, we have this audio logo wave file here, which we can play, which is just that one. Kind of easy. But what we would now do is go into this ambient folder here. And so if I want to create some sort of ambient loop for the level, I should probably create some sort of folder here. Go here to the to-do list. So I have a background ambient noise. Which should really just be like a loop. It's not a 3D sound, it's just like a 2D sound that plays in the background on top of everything, or below, shall we say, everything else. So we have an amp folder here. Maybe we can actually just create the thing directly into this folder. So let's go to Reaper. And I'm gonna make a new project, time-based project. I don't need to save that. And we just go into the amp folder. And I'm gonna call this level refinery ambient loop. So this level is called the refinery level, even though it's actually sort of more concentrated on the big elevator these days, but it's still called the level refinery. Or is it called map refinery? When you showed the settings dialog, I was thinking about localization for some reason. If you ever want to add the German language, I can help you. That's nice to know. I have an anecdote about German localization. Let's have a look. Yeah, map refinery is actually what I call this. So let's use the same thing here. Create a subdirectory for a project, copy all the media. So I used to work at a company where we made mobile phone games, like those really old. This was before the iPhone, like Java games. And we localized everything to do all kinds of languages. And German was always the problematic one because all the words were like 2 or 3 times as long in German as all the other languages. So we could never fit them on the screen. All of our UI layouts would break, and it was always German. So there. But yes, I appreciate your help with German if I get to that. Yeah, I'm actually, my native language is Swedish, which is sort of related to German, so I kind of understand a little bit of German. I don't really speak or write it, but I do understand a little bit of German due to my native language actually being Swedish. Though I live in Finland, so I speak Finnish most of the time outside of the house. All right. Speaking of German, I have a file called something Berlin, which I was actually going to use as a base for this ambient loop here. Let's create a track. Let's create a sudo master track. So this is just a track that I create. I think this has like that's a compressor on top of it, which is not turned on currently. But yeah, it's something that I typically just create there to have sort of an easy way to create adjust volume and FX change and all of that without having to actually go through the true master. I think you can show the master track here, and you can technically do the same things here. But I like to have a pseudo master there. Swedish has some funny compound wordisms going on too. Absolutely Swedish. And don't get me started on Finnish and the whole compound wordisms going on with Finnish. That is crazy. Anyway, let's see if we could find this thing that I was looking for. And I honestly don't remember exactly what it was anymore. It's clearly not that one. It's not that one. I think it's probably this one. It's quite long, so I might have to chop it up into like pieces and see what actually fits. Yeah, some church bells. We don't want the church bells, but there were some really nice pieces here that we might be able to use. Just jump forward a little bit. Hello, Matt, and welcome back. Yeah, I think this was the piece that I was thinking about. There's some traffic going on in this section. I think we'll probably want to start around here. So at around 1:30, there's a pretty nice section. Yeah, you can't quite make out any. Of course, we can throw some filters on it. Maybe we can like slow it down and speed it up and things like that. But so this is kind of nice. Let's get a piece of this, and this Media Explorer here actually has a pretty nice feature. You can just like grab a piece of this audio like this, like that, and then you drag that into a new track, like boom. So here we have the thing. It is 53 seconds or so. Now if we go have a look here in this amp folder, it should have created a new file here. I wonder if it actually, I think it probably actually takes the whole thing. So this is going to be longer. Yeah, it's 4 minutes. So that's pretty nice because you can sort of identify, okay, I want this piece of the audio file. But you can always get back more later if you want to, just by like extending this like that way. So how does this actually loop now? Let's boost the volume a little bit to clearly hear it. Yeah, so it's pretty nice. There's perhaps even like too little going on with it, but we can always add more later. We can add more layers to it. But I think this is pretty nice. This is going to work quite well as a background for that sort of environment, I think. So let's see how well it loops. Yeah, not very well. Alright, I have to confess that I left my microphone turned off for a while. So sorry about that. So basically, I don't know how much you guys actually missed. But basically we have this event component here. Yeah, today's stream is a little amateur hour on my part. We have this event component here, which you can play by clicking a button. It's called play. There's actually no way to play it in the game currently, which is like, that basically means that I haven't used this in the game, because there's really no way of actually playing it unless you have another component that actually calls play on this guy. So that's fine. Actually, it can't even call play on this guy because this is a private function. So I'm not exactly sure what I was thinking when I made this, but this is a component that has been sitting around here for like a year probably. Anyway, now I want to use it, and I want to make it so that you can autoplay the thing. So I created a boolean here called false. We expose it so that we can set it in the editor. And here in onObjectCreated, we'll want to check if self autoplay self.play, and actually probably if self context in editor is false, so that we don't autoplay it in the editor. That's basically it. Like this. And then we should probably go into the blueprint and just make sure that this guy actually only lives on the client. Where's my window? There it is. Alright, so blueprints. And there's probably like audio blueprints. Yeah, there's only the one. This guy is created in the level editor and on the client, so that's fine. That's completely fine. And yeah, another thing that I'm not exactly sure about is why this audio is so loud on this component compared to the editor, the timbre editor. So here when I play it in the level editor, it's actually significantly louder than it is in the timbre editor, which is of course not something that's supposed to be different. So now we have the autoplay toggle here. We can play it like this. And it plays, and it's very, very loud. And we don't get anything. That's good. I wanted to test that it doesn't break the game if we don't toggle it on. And now if we toggle it on and we play the game, we should hear it. But I wonder how loud it is. It's very, very loud. We also don't have the auto pause ability set. So we can see here auto pause is set to false when we're creating the instance. So if you set the auto pause to true, when you pause the game, it pauses the event, which is definitely something that we'll want to expose as well. So let's do that as well. We can probably have it set to true actually as a default value. I think that is probably what that is typically what you want for for sounds that are placed in the level, such as these things will typically be. So auto pause, and we just actually delete this guy and pass self.autopause instead. Yeah, you lost 10 minutes or so. Oh. Yeah, my apologies. The stream has been a weird one. So we take this guy. It is now set to autoplay and auto pause. That's nice. We can actually export this thing. So we can run it without the editor, and we can verify that it does indeed auto pause, but also that it. Oh, well, let's actually just go straight into the level now again. And try to figure out why it actually is that loud. And so it's very loud. And if we pause and unpause, you can sort of hear it. There's a little bit of popping going on there, which is probably related to the loudness of it, but also something that we might actually have to look at separately. But yeah, I'd like it to be that loud. And so what is going on? How loud is the actual wave file that we exported? Yeah, it's not very loud actually. Sounds about the same as here in the editor. Okay, that's good. How is the thing so ridiculously loud then? That's what I want to know. If we get the volume here. This is clearly the engine sound, and now we have the multiplier for. This is probably the other one, the ambient noise. Okay, I can't actually expand that. It's annoying. Yeah, ambient noise loop. Good. So that returns 1 for that. We can set the master volume down to 0.3 or something, 0.2. This is about the volume that we actually want. But now we're adjusting everything. Curious. So how is this like different than what we're doing here? Very curious. Yep, very loud. And let's maybe put a breakpoint there. we should hit a few of them, because the engine sound has a bunch of sounds. We can see here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is actually the one that we want. Autoplay, you can see here the call stack in Visual Studio, that's good. Okay, volume is 1. Wow, that's so weird. The only thing that I can think of here is the fact that we do the Ogg Vorbis conversion. That somehow messes up the volume. So let's do original. And now we get the quite large bank, the 29.9 megabyte bank there. That's fine. Shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, like look at that. So the audio conversion somehow messes up the volume. Wow, that's weird. What if we make it an MP3 then? I used a third-party library called SND, or is it libsnd, libsound, to actually do the conversion. So maybe there's a bug in that somehow. Alright, well, I'm clearly doing the same thing here. That's interesting. Original one is fine. The other ones are botched. Okay, well I can look at that perhaps later. So now we have a nice background sound here. But it starts a bit abruptly, right? So we should probably make it fade in. Do you have to pass the master volume to the converters, perhaps? I shouldn't have to. And if there is any kind of volume that I need to pass there, then it will basically just be sort of a volume adjustment to what is already in the file, right? At least that's how I see it. Because like each wave file already has its sort of baked in amplitude of the wave file. Yeah, this sounds kind of nice. I do think this loop will work, perhaps with a little bit of filtering there in Reaper. And maybe some real-time reverb on this sound effects boss. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure, like Mr. Matt, for example, knows a lot more about this than me. But I'm thinking, like, if you just have a wave file, and you want to convert it from wave to MP3, then there shouldn't really have to be any sort of. You shouldn't have to pass any volume in it. You should just be able to convert it from one file to another. That's how I see it. Let's have a look here. We have this guy. I know this is not the same library, probably doing the conversion, but let's use Audacity, which is like the simplest sound editor there is, right? Use this and then just export it as Ogg Vorbis. And let's not put it there, let's put it in the same temp folder. So there, you just convert it, and there's really no volume settings here to even set on it. So if we have the wave, sounds like that, and we have the OGG, it sounds like that. Sounds exactly the same. Maybe there's something with like libsnd that I have to figure out. Or maybe it does like some sort of volume normalization or something. It's completely possible. I'm not sure. The background needs to be muted slightly as you drive into that area away from the opening. You could add like low pass filters and things like that to this. So we've had a bi-quant resonant filter in low pass mode. Plug this into the ambient noise. And then we start playing with this frequency. And initial should probably be quite high. Let's make it like 3000. Minimum should be something above 0. Frequency, let's plug it in here. Wet is set to 1, that's probably fine. Let's bump it actually all the way up, and let's see when we start to actually hear some change here. So you could, like, if you're driving into like an indoor space, you could maybe do some sort of lower frequency, low pass filter on this. Maybe set the resonance to a bit less. And then when you go back out again, it sort of opens up. Something like that, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, it would be nice to actually modulate that somehow. Let's, however, put in a curve and make it actually start with almost 0 volume and then go up to 1 with time. Actually, let's indeed start it at 0. Blah blah blah. How long should the fade in be? I don't know. Actually, this doesn't need to be done with a curve. We can just do it with a remap. I think that's probably easier. It's just easier to make small changes to this. Put the time in there. So time from probably like, let's ramp it up during the first 8 seconds, and it goes from 0 to 1, like that. So now when we play it, it just comes in kind of nice. Yeah, you're talking about the ray tracing. Maybe. It depends on the sort of effect that you want. Ray tracing would be kind of interesting to do. Yes, you could do it like very sort of low intensity. You could also do some sort of like, you know, you have these areas here, these zones as I call them. So this zone is a no reverse zone. But you could of course just like could do things like this. Like I have an area here set up where I have a bunch of these no reverse zones just close to each other. This basically makes it so that the mother vehicle can drive up onto this cliff, and then they can reverse back out before they try to do some stupid things like reverse turns. And you could perhaps use like spherical zones to modulate some like distance to one of these centers, but you would have to sort of iterate over all of the zones of the correct type and do some calculations based on that. Raycasting can be sort of more automatic once you get it set up. I think there's probably a little bit of more upfront work with that sort of thing. But I do think that you can actually get more control over the effect with a system like this, where you just like you sprinkle these types through the level and you get some basically do markup on where you want things to be modulated in a certain way. Could you do something similar to light probes to get a compromise? Yeah, maybe. Maybe you could actually. I mean, you can even just query the light probe data directly. If you have a light probe here, you can get the sort of the overall value from this compared to this, which has like a higher value. I think someone actually even does that for some of the big games. I think that's something that's actually been used, because you can just query the light probe mesh for that completely. If the map area is circular, you could probably get away with large fair. Yeah, probably. You could probably do that. Yes. Yes, but then you would have to sort of, you know, if you have, let's put in some primitive shapes here. And make it a sphere and make it quite large. Let's make it even larger. Right, if you have like one of these guys here, and then you have another one of them there, and maybe that thing is actually smaller, and then you have a third one like over here. All right, like that. And then like, what if you're standing right here, so you're closest to this guy, but you still are under the influence of this guy. Do you just take only this guy's influence, or do you combine it with this guy's influence? It's not really a problem, it's just something to decide, like how do you actually want it to work. But yeah, that's a little perhaps more complicated than what I am going for right now. But yes, definitely it's an interesting thing, and it's quite possible to just do with a timbre event parameter. Anyway, now we have a nice ramp up for the audio, so now when we play the game, it shouldn't like pop immediately into your ears. So let's try this out. And especially I'm interested in hearing what the intro sounds like now. So let's go through the menu. And if you load this now, you get a nice ramp up. Still think that we should hear the vehicle sound from much further away than we currently actually do. So if we set the engine. This should be ambient. We don't have an ambient bus. Let's leave it as it is for now. It gets placed under the master bus in this case. We have this attenuation distance, so it's a linear distance. That's probably fine for this. Let's make the maximum distance something like 250. I feel like some of these things we might have to make available so that you can just change them on the fly without having to go through a rebuild of this. But you can definitely hear it from further away now, but I still don't think it's like quite loud enough. What is the distance from like from like over here to here? It's like 141. So 250 should definitely be close enough, but it's just like it's so very. It's also very quiet at that distance. So we can make it like 300 maybe. And of course the question here is that if we're doing a linear distance attenuation, and it's literally just something that I pass to so loud, then doing a linear volume compensation for that, like a ramp. Because as we saw earlier, I was going to listen to this. Yeah, it kind of feels like we have to like bump that up actually quite high for it to be audible at that distance. Let's make it 600. Yeah, like we saw earlier, the perception of loudness is not like linear. It doesn't linearly correlate to the volume value. And now we can clearly hear it. Yeah, that's in some ways that's nicer. It's sort of like more what I had in mind, but you can hear that the vehicle's actually starting from a complete standstill. And you can hear it just accelerate there in the beginning. That's annoying because they're sort of supposed to be arriving from out there. So the sound sort of gives it away that, oh, it's actually just starting from a standstill. So maybe we'll have to put in a script which fades in the engine sound over time, right? So we would do something like this, where we toggle it. Yeah, I don't know. And then another completely missing audio source here are like all the other sounds of the car, all the impact sounds, all the sounds that the suspension might make when you're bumping over the terrain here. would probably add a lot as well. Maybe just like a general sort of tire noise. It's also something that we might want to put in. Something that I prototyped a little bit previously, but wasn't always all that happy with it. Another thing that's also kind of interesting, which would be cool to implement here, is like as something gets further away, you would put in a low pass filter on it, so you only get sort of the low frequency noises of things that are further away. I know that's something that certain games do. That could be kind of fun. But it might be a bit computationally expensive, I guess. Yeah, sounds nice. I'm playing this now with headphones, and at least this already feels much less sort of empty. Now that we have this little bit of background noise going on. Okay, so I'm curious about that volume bump during the conversion though. Like, what is that about? What is that about? Let's have a look in the... I'll just shut that down. Convert wave file function. I'm pretty sure it goes to C++ to do the conversion. Build project. It's over here, and convert wave file. Yeah, so it goes to SND file services. And that's what it was called actually. Not lib sound, but SND file. Yeah. Uh-huh. So convert input file to destination file. Copy data floating point. Normalize is false. Yeah, this is code that I took from some example from SND file. So we can override the sample rate. The NDNS is the NDNS of the file. Normalize is false. Sound file convert. Yeah, it's probably this thing that I took it from. kind of looks like it is. Normalize the data in the output file. And all of this is kind of interesting, of course, because like I've used this conversion for some time now with the music, for example, and I haven't realized before now that it actually might change the output. So today I learned SFE copy data. I wonder, do they have any SND file? Any documentation for this? Programming interface. I wonder if we actually should do the normalization. That is interesting, though. So one thing that we can do here is actually look at these files as we are converting them. So if we run this and we build the project, we should be able to figure out the path to the file which is actually used. And then just yoink that data out of there. So let's see. Ambient noise loop. So some of these are going to be Og Vorbis. That's original, 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 original. Let's make this ambient loop now an MP3, so we can actually distinguish it from the rest of the stuff. We didn't actually hit it. Why didn't we hit it? Let's put a breakpoint there instead. Oh, what? Target process exited. Ah, that's not good. So there's something with the debugging of managed versus native code probably. But we can write to log here, converting. Like that, and this needs to be a string format. We just plonk those in there. It is possible that I go in and delete those temp files later, but again, we can try it out. Right, so here we have the paths. Let's copy that into a more sensible text editor. Oh, that's not how you do it. You copy all. So temp folder. Do I actually go in and delete all of that? It is possible. Wave file conversion. Temp file path. Yeah, then we delete the temp file path. Oh, that's annoying. And with the Reaper project asset, we do actually both of them. Okay. So let's just simply not do that. Thank you very much. Yeah, we can see that we're actually, the conversion of that stuff is actually what takes some time here. So my suspicion on that was at least true. So now if we go into temp, we have an MP3 file and we have a WAV file. The WAV file sounds nice. The MP3 file is very, very loud. Okay. So that's sort of like where my code ends and libsound file begins. So it's clearly something to do with how we're calling. Oh no, those should be left there. It's clearly something to do with how we call libsound file to do the conversion. And we can even drag them into here probably and just see. MP3 very loud, and the original one is not. Yeah, we can get rid of that. Let's look at the conversion code a bit more. So we just take those .NET strings that we get in, we cast them into native strings, which I think we don't necessarily even need to do. Could just, because this takes C strings anyway. I think we can get like a C string out of this, right? Maybe we can't get a C string directly. Anyway, that's completely fine. Then we go into here, convert. No sample rate override. Yeah. So I have details of 1. Bitrate. Yeah, okay, the bitrate is not going to really, it's going to be much lower here, obviously, because this is compressed. So That should all be fine. And here we're just doing some setup for the actual conversion. Format check. We are not normalizing. Can we go into that? We can go into this. So what does normalize do actually? Yeah, if not normalize and max is less than, it should just read it and write it. This is basically exactly what we want. So the normalization is this thing here, where it actually goes in and figures out what is the max one, right? Not normalize and max is less than 1. Right, so if max is yeah, neither 0, subnormal, infinite, or nor none, then we need to do the normalization if that isn't the case. And that's supposed to be 0, so that's fine. So then, of course, the question is here that does it somehow force a normalization of this thing? Because this max is above 1, or one of these, 0, subnormal, infinite, or none. Actually, no, that's error handling, right? But if max goes above 1, so there's an SF command call here with calc signal max. All right. Yeah, retrieve, calculate the measured maximum signal value. Does that file somehow contain a measured maximum signal value? That is above 1. Or 1 or above 1. If it is, then that will be a problem. All right. Interesting. Let's build a debug version of this and see if we can actually debug that without it crashing. And then basis tools, debug. So basically, if we go, where was it? It's here, right? But we might have to actually put the breakpoint here in C#. I'm not exactly sure. Let's put a few breakpoints here, splat them around the place. let's start with that. See what happens. Right, so build. All right, now we can go into the native side as well. That's fine. Can't seem to actually get any of those source founders file values to be visible though. That's annoying. Now we can get them here at least. So let's put a breakpoint there and only go into that if we are actually converting to an MP3. So what do we have here? That's an OGG file. Another OGG file. One more. Right, so now this is the one that we're interested in. We're going from WAV to MP3. And we're still doing normalized 0. Nothing has changed that. Now we're going into here. And now, what is max? Max is 90. What? 973.201. Right, so it needs to go in and normalize this thing. For some reason. What? What? That's not good. That explains why it's actually normalizing it, and that also explains why I haven't heard this before, because it doesn't necessarily normalize all the files. So we go here. Yeah, this is more like what I was expecting, like a max value that is somewhere between 0 and 1. 0.51, that's completely sensible, and then it goes and just copies the things over. But for some reason that calculate signal max is completely crazy with that one wave file, which is interesting because it's like it's a wave file produced by Reaper. It should be completely fine. MP3, it's this one, wave. This file here, yeah. All right, well, that is strange indeed. It is of course possible that we have a newer version of this, and there would be actually like a bug in the actual library. What's the version of sound file that we're using? Let's have a look. Editor, bin, release, sound file. 122. Yeah, 122 is still the most recent one. How peculiar. Yeah, let's put on some background music again, although we're not really doing anything with sound in this very moment. So basically I would have to go in and look at what it's actually doing, how it's determining that that file is so crazy that it needs to normalize it. Which is of course not really something I want to do. What is that? 973,210. Yeah. Not really finding anything on Google, at least with this. Yes, folks. I'm a little bit confused now. I wonder if we've actually found a bug in this library here. Kind of tempted to believe that, since this is a file produced by third-party code and it's now getting treated incorrectly by other third-party code. So I probably need to have a think about what I'm going to do with this thing. This wave file seems to be completely fine. I don't think there's anything very complicated with this. And I can of course just work around this by not normalizing things. I basically just well, we can try that, for example, and see what happens. So basically I just always do this, right? And take that else away for the time being. And we can try this out. So let's turn off the background music for a bit. I'm gonna go back to release here. And here as well. Build that. Nothing actually gets built because the actual code is here on the editor side. So now we're just simply not doing the normalization. And this is of course one way to handle this if it is indeed broken, but it doesn't really feel like the correct solution to this problem. Yeah, we don't need to step into anything. So now this thing is an MP3. If we go have a look at the temp folder now, where's the temp folder? Did I lose it? I bet I did. I bet I lost it. There we go. Oh, and yeah. 1 second. I need to get rid of that delete temp file call here as well. If we really want to actually compare these guys. So basically like these files here. Get rid of those. Then I can go into the temp folder. We have the previous ones. So we have, yeah, those guys can just go away. But we have like MP3, which is very loud. And we have the normal one, the wave one, which is nice and mellow. And now if we build this like so, shut this off. Again, we have the nice and mellow one. And we have another one which is just as mellow and nice. So this would fix it, because this MP3 file is now the thing that will actually get put into the sound bank and then used in the game. So now if we run this, if we run the game, it will sound exactly how we want it, except that yeah, now that sound is actually really loud. Ah, interesting. So now the engine sound is actually really, really loud. So does that mean that we actually do want to normalize those? I'm kind of thinking no, but I'm not sure anymore. Yeah, so many questions related to this audio mixing. Seems like such a simple thing, right? Just adjust some volume sliders until you get a nice mix. So many things to actually do and figure out. The nice thing is that this is starting to sound pretty interesting and nice, and of course all the pausing and everything sounds kind of nice. So now if we reload this, we should have a pretty nice ramp up here with the sound and all of that. So yeah, my audio work continues, needless to say. Quite a lot to do still on the audio side. It's not, unfortunately, as simple as one would hope. But that is how it is. Anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna end this stream now. I've been going for 4 hours, and some of those 4 hours were kind of confused and not perhaps super good streaming content. I apologize for that. Just been one of those days. But we ran into some interesting issues that definitely need to be fixed. And we did fix some other issues. And those issues are now fixed, so that's nice. Anyway, I guess this is how it is sometimes. If you found this interesting and fun to watch, leave a like, subscribe, do all the YouTube jazz. I hope to see you in an upcoming video. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.